I don't know why I just didn't allow myself to believe it. You know, they phoned me up in November and they said, oh, you know, we got some great news. This is Love Island. We got some great news. You're going to be opening the show. And I just thought, like, I know that your initial reaction would be, wow, like I'm opening the show. But I was quite like neutral.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, like, oh, okay. And he goes, I know you're speechless. I know you're excited. I'm thinking, I don't really know how to process it.
I just
like,
signed that contract.
Yeah. I was like, actually, I'm a little bit anxious about how do I quit the job that I haven't started yet? So.
What's going on, people? Really exciting video that we've got for you to check out. We've got my boy Naz, former Love Island contestant, also known as the People's Champ. Check out the video. We have lots of insightful conversations around what his experience was like in Love Island, challenges that he faced coming outside of the villa, and what he's doing now and what those opportunities really look like. So check out the video. A lot of banter, a lot of fun. And yeah, hope you guys enjoy it. So Naz, welcome, bro.
Yeah, Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Nah, no worries,
I'm extremely relaxed. I'm back here. I don't know whether to.
I feel comfortable, man. I want you to feel comfortable. Nah, it's interesting though, because when we first found out that we had a mutual, I think this is going to be the
We're going to shout him out.
I don't want to blow his head up, to be honest.
We'll leave it. He's an acquaintance of mine, isn't he?
It's funny because he's there. But no, man, it's super sick to have you on, man. Like I was saying to Nana before, this is the episode that I'm the most excited about.
Yeah.
So maybe just want to give us a quick intro, who you are, what you're doing. Maybe we'll start there.
Of course, yeah. I'm Naz Majid. I rose to fame on Love Island back in 2020. Since then, I've been trying my hand at presenting, content creation. TV personality, all of that jazz. So yeah, that's basically a little bit about myself.
Awesome. It's funny because when I think about the whole Love Island piece, firstly it must be a big ego boost, right? You've been on there, automatically means you're good looking. That's what it is.
I don't know, you know. I feel like I was thrown in there for my personality. If I'm being honest. Let me know in the comments, isn't it? I don't know. I just think it was a weird way that it came about because I just graduated from university.
Yeah.
You know, studying sport health and exercise sciences. I then was like a builder for a little bit, tried to get back into football as well. And it all just kind of happened so fast. Like they messaged me on Instagram from like an account that had, were following 2,000 people and only had 200 followers, no profile picture. So I just thought, oh, it must be fake. Yeah. And then I think for some reason I just went through the process and said, oh, we'd love to meet you. Yeah. And I thought, well, they're going to see me because they'd only ever seen my Instagram. So I thought they're going to meet me and just think I'm a bit of a donut. I'm not really, when you think of Love Island, you think like 6 foot built. I'm not like the stereotypical Love Island guy. And then after that first meeting I had with the execs, they were really keen on me. They were really welcoming, really warm. Nice. And they said, well, we absolutely love you. Yeah. So I think, I don't know, it was maybe a bit of both. Yeah. I would say, but more so for my personality.
Did they tell
Trying to be humble.
Did they tell you like how they're, because I know a few people that's been messaged. Yeah. How does that work in terms of, do they just like see profile pictures, see followings?
Do you know what? That's the $1 million question because when I asked them, because I only had 9 posts on Instagram prior to going on Love Island. Yeah, 9 posts in 9 years. So I was trying to make a point, just 1 a year, just to make sure people know that I was still ticking over. I only had like 9 posts on Instagram, and it wasn't like I had a big social media follow. I had about 1,000 followers before I went on. So I was really kind of bemused as to why or how they even found me. So when I asked them, they said that I was tagged. It sounds really weird, but you know when you geotag someone on a story? And it's like, I'm in Piccadilly Circus or I'm in Leicester Square. And then if you go on the Leicester Square story, you can see people that have like tagged themselves. And that was what they told me. So I just thought it's so random.
That's random, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So
that's quite interesting. Yeah. So that's quite interesting because I always had a presumption that you have to have a huge social media following.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
To actually get on Love Island. But do you think they select individuals based on different criterias?
Do you know what?
That doesn't include social media.
I think that, there's loads of criteria for sure. I mean, on the one hand, they had 100,000 applicants, like first and foremost, but then they've also got people that they cherry pick for whatever reason. Like they might just see you out and about. They might think, or they might see you on social media. I think there's a lot of different stories that I've heard of how people get selected. And then you kind of go through this process where you're sifted through, like if you have 1, 2 or 3 interviews, group interviews, whatever it may be. But I literally just had 1, which is why I was so surprised. Because when I went onto the show, we're kind of talking, you got 24 hours to kill. Yeah, exactly. No TV, nothing else to do other than to converse with one another.
So how long was that process then from you getting the first message to... Naz, you're going to be on Love Island. This is it.
Oh, I have to cast my mind back 4 years ago, testing my memory.
Yeah.
I want to say I got a message in August, September.
Yeah.
Or maybe that was like the initial message. A couple of weeks later, I had the interview. And then they told me in October, early November.
Jesus.
So that's, I don't know, it's like over the space of like a couple months, I would say. You kind of know maybe about 4 to 6 weeks in advance, but everyone's got a different story. Like I said, I had one interview, whereas my peers may have had a group interview and then get a call back on the same day, and then you kind of get sifted out on the day, and then you come back a week later. So yeah, it's quite a rigorous process.
Yeah.
I have curiosity. Before you went on the island, right?
Yeah.
Well, because obviously you did uni, you had, you know, ambitions to do certain things. What did you want to do before the island came?
God forbid I talk about my football career.
The knee, right? The knee.
Yeah,
if not for the knee.
The ankle, actually. Yeah. But so prior to, I mean, football was a huge part of my life. You know, growing up, it was kind of like a safe space. I know it sounds a little bit cliche, but it was, I mean, us as humans, we want to be competent at things. We want to excel at things. And my thing was football. You know, and again, this is going to sound cliche as well, but growing up, my dad wanted me to play cricket. You can laugh.
You know what? I actually know that one.
But he wanted me to play, so he was like big into cricket. And he wanted me to play cricket. But I remember watching like the 2002 World Cup, and that was when I was about 7 or 8 years old. And at the time, you know, we used to wheel out those, you know, those TVs in primary school.
Yeah.
And we used to take time off
those.
school to watch this football. And I just thought, oh, like, it's incredible that we're taking time out of our education. This is like 6, 7 years old. It wasn't obviously this eloquent. Like, I was taking time out of my education.
You're spoiling my education.
Yeah. I was a bit of a nerd, to be fair. But I was thinking, oh, we're taking time out of learning and education to be watching this spectacle, you know, and it's, you know, televised globally, and it's such a big deal to so many people. Yeah. And I went down, I think maybe like a couple of weeks later, went down to like my local area, just like this park and whatnot. And I got signed to the local club after like literally kicking the ball for the first time. Yeah. This is at like 8 years old. And then a year later, I went on trial for Crystal Palace.
Oh,
wow.
So that was, like, for me, it was like, oh, okay, it's a passion, but I'm also quite good at it. And then throughout my youth career, I was at like, you know, Palace, Brentford, or like trials like Palace, Brentford, so-and-so. And I ended up at AFC Wimbledon from the ages of 16 to 19. So when I say like, you know, football was a huge part of my life, it was actually like, that was what I wanted to do. You know, it came to a crossroads where at the age of 16, you either choose between A levels or for me, it was either like A levels or BTEC sports and the football path. And I thought I got 8 A's at GCSE, 8 A's, 3 B's. So it could have easily gone either way. But my dad was like to me, you know what, son? Well, to be fair, it's a bit mad because my dad's from Pakistan, my mum's from Guyana. So there is a bit of like,
I remember.
There is a bit of a culture where it's like, you know, get your education. And, you know, that's what we did. We got our education, and that's how we became successful, and that's how we created like this stable home. You know, they built the foundations for me. So what I expected them to say was, you know, continue with your education, but they've always been so supportive of me, you know, with the football career. Prior to GCSEs, they've always said, you know what, get your education behind you, continue with football as best you can, and once you get your education behind you, then pursue the career. So once I got the 8 A's at GCSE, they were like, right, you know, we have every faith in you that we trust you to do whatever you want to do at this point. So I went down the football route. I mean, in hindsight, obviously, didn't quite make it, unfortunately. Did have the ankle injury to go pro, which is, you know...
bleeding ankle.
I know, everyone and their dog has that same so,
for me, it was the knee. Like, I was at 16, I had the same crossroads where my dad said to me, you know, do economics or football. Yeah. But obviously, I mean, I wasn't good enough for football, to be honest. I'd admit that.
Can't relate. I was good enough. The injury actually helped me.
So no, I definitely empathise with that. So obviously you've done the whole, you know, you've just been told you're going on Love Island. Yeah. That's you're buzzed, you're excited. Yeah. Did you have to make any sort of sacrifices to go on? So, you know, I've got to park football, or I've got to park opportunities or that sort of thing.
Do you know what? At that point, because I just graduated from uni, it was like the world's my oyster. And it was like I said, you know, with the education thing, I got first at uni. Yeah. And I thought, right, I can kick on and do whatever I want with that. Actually, another crossroads at that point, because at the same time of me doing the interview for Love Island, I got a job as a health and wellbeing consultant for people with pre-diabetes. So I could have gone down it was basically, long story short, it was rather than like, you know, popping pills to you know, to help people. It was like a lifestyle change and, you know, activities that we can do together. So that was what I was actually going to do if it wasn't for love. Or it was literally like happening at the same time. So I think I don't know. I think I signed the contract for that job at the same time I had the interview for Love Island, because obviously, you know, it's all a bit, you know, hush hush. Like, oh yeah, you know, you're gonna be going on, you're gonna be opening a show, but am I actually? Do you know what I mean? I thought at any point someone could just jump out and say it was all a prank. Yeah, psych, you know what I mean? It was, honestly, like, even to the point where I was at the airport in South Africa, because our one was the winter one. I was at the airport in South Africa thinking, this is actually real, you know, like this is actually happening. Because I don't know why I just didn't allow myself to believe it. You know, they phoned me up in November and they said, oh, you know, we got some great news. This is Love Island. We got some great news. You're going to be opening the show. And I just thought, like, I know that your initial reaction would be, wow, like I'm opening the show. But I was quite like neutral. Yeah. I was just thinking, like, oh, okay. And he goes, I know you're speechless. I know you're excited. I'm thinking, I don't really know how to process it.
I just signed that contract.
Yeah. I was like, actually, I'm a little bit anxious about how do I quit the job that I haven't started yet? So, but no, yeah. So I wouldn't say I had to make any sacrifice. I think, obviously, before you go on Love Island, you kind of, I mean, for me personally, I went to the gym like 4 or 5 times a week. I was just trying to get shredded chicken for that villa. I thought, let me just put my best foot forward. And then when I was actually on the show, couldn't care less about going to the gym. I know it sounds crazy, but I was there for about 30, 35 days. Don't think I lifted a dumbbell once. I was just playing my PT role, making sure everyone else.
You know what? I've always thought, it's always like when you see the show, right? It's like they all pick up the dumbbells at the exact same time and the camera picks them up. I'm like, did you do this for the camera? Are you actually training? What's going on here?
No. To be fair, when I was there, a lot of the boys we trained together.
Okay.
Kind of like, well, if we're gonna get up in the morning and have our breakfast, like, is that the camaraderie of everyone just training together, or you know, if the girls want to come over and like train with us as well, like we were more than happy to do that. But it wasn't like, oh, you know, there's a camera on us.
Let's start doing it.
Yeah. Okay.
I always think like, what else are you gonna do, right? You got the whole
the
whole day.
Yeah. What did I do when I wasn't lifting weights?
It's like you're talking to people, but at some point it's like, oh, this is a little bit dry. Like,
I mean, it's a bit weird because you're constantly. It sounds a little bit weird, but you're constantly living in excitement and anticipation or anxiety, whatever that may be. Because let's say, you know, in the first week you couple up with someone and you're really getting along well with them. You know, at any point a bombshell might come in. That's gonna, you know, come in and swoop your partner away. So you are kind of living in a little bit of like excitement and anticipation. So that kind of feeling gets you going throughout the day. But then the challenges as well take like a few hours. Recouplings take a few hours. So there is a lot going on. To kind of take your mind off things. Obviously, people are like constantly coming in, and you're constantly learning about people as well. So, but like you said, it does get to a point where, you know, me and some of them are just staring at each other, thinking like,
what's going on?
So like, what should we talk about today? You know, let's talk about, you know, alien theories and conspiracies and this and that and the other. So,
did you go on with any like preconceptions of not necessarily how it's going to be in there, but stuff that's going to happen after? Because I think, particularly as the years have gone on, so I feel like some people go on there and in the back of their mind, they're trying to build like a brand already for themselves. So when they walk out of the villa, it's like all these opportunities. This is what I'm going to do. And this is what's going to like take me forward. Sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me personally, because I would never apply to go on the show. It was never part of like, oh, you know, I never watched the show. To be fair, I never really watched the show before. I never really watched the show before going on. So I didn't really know what to expect. And I know that, you know, the season just prior to us had like Molly May and Tommy Fury. And I think that was when it was at its peak. But for me, because I wasn't really into it that much. It was only just, you know, just watching it here and there or catching a few episodes, or because it was trending on social media, on Twitter, wherever it was at the time. That was how I would tune in. But I wasn't really that invested in it. So going into the process, funny you asked, because in the initial interview, they kind of do it like a bit of a screen and say, oh, so why do you want to go on the show? And I remember turning to
you called me.
That is exactly what I said. I said, well, if I'm being completely honest, like you guys reached out to me, but you know, it's winter here at the moment, but it's going to be sunny in South Africa. I've never been there before. It'd be a chance to see somewhere new. I'm like big into like seeing new cultures and kind of embracing new cultures as well. So I thought, you know, it'd be great to go over there. I mean, surrounded by stunning people as well. Can't really complain. And I think they were a little bit taken back because they were like, oh, not because it could be amazing for your career, not because you could find love. I was like, oh yeah, shit. I didn't really think about actually, you know, what can happen after and that potentially finding love. I just thought, for me, I don't want to live a life of regrets. I didn't want to potentially watch that show and think, oh, you know what, I could have been on there.
Yeah.
Or think to myself, you know, so many people have questions about this show, and so many people are like I said, going out of their way to apply for the show.
Exactly.
It's a little bit. Not bad mind of me, but I would just love to experience it just to tell you what it's like.
Yeah. And I think, you know, in particular, not even to blow smoke up your ass, but I think that came across on camera. Like I always say to
Very
the boys,
authentic,
Naz is the people's champ. Like we're all backing him.
I
like,
think the whole country was rooting for you, bro.
because you can tell people that are on there and they fit into that like Love Island mold, and it's like even from how they're behaving, it's almost like it doesn't feel as natural and authentic.
Yeah.
Whereas with you in particular, like I truly felt like, this guy's just being himself.
Just happy go lucky.
Yeah, this guy.
I was just hoping for the best, man.
Just being there is a W.
Yeah.
So then, bro, so like, okay, you've got the call. You're now on the island, right? Obviously, you know what the kind of opportunities Love Island could potentially give you and stuff like that. Did you think to yourself, okay, if I do this and I do this in a certain way, I could get a certain opportunity out of it? Or was you just thinking, let me just go out there and just be myself?
I think for me, it was just, if I'm being completely honest, I went on the show just thinking, if I last 4 days, I'm actually going to be proud of myself. Because I could just take something from the experience. You know, every day I was waking up grateful to be there, because it is such an incredible like experience. Like whether you had a good time or a bad time, it's very unique. And there's only a finite amount of people that have actually been through it. So it's, to me, it was just take that experience for what it is. And I've always lived with the notion of, you know, live with love in your heart. So it's never about, oh, you know, I'm going to do this for clout and I'm going to do this to, because I didn't really have a career. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just come out of uni. It wasn't like, oh, I'm planning to be a presenter. Or I'm planning to be a social media sensation, because I only had 9 posts on social media. So I wasn't really I was thrown into a world that I'm not really used to anyway. So for me, it's just be true to yourself, take everything as it comes, and just live a life with no regret. So any decision I made in there was just, you know, purely because I felt like that was the right thing to do at the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Makes sense.
And I think, you know, I definitely want to move off the Love Island topic at some point, because I think, you know, even from the chats that we've had, there's so much, you're a really interesting person. I think there's so many different facets to you. But what would you say maybe are your highlights of being in the villa, and maybe lowlights of being in the villa?
If I'm being honest, the experience as a whole was a highlight. I know it's a little bit broad and it's a little bit vague, but every day waking up being with that just real like friends that you've made that part of this unique experience, and like I said, the producers and all the background staff was so welcoming to me, and it took me a little bit by surprise, because you think they have 100,000 people applying, it's the biggest dating show in the UK, they could so easily be big time, but they were just so welcoming, so lovely, and I can't sit here and say a bad word about any part of my Love Island experience. So I don't know, like a low light, I wouldn't even say there was a low light. If I'm being honest, I just took it.
Good experience.
Yeah, just took it as it was.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So post the island, right? Obviously now you're out of the island. And obviously,
I'll be feeling myself differently. What?
What?
I'll be feeling myself. I'll be like, I'm the guy.
You're the guy.
You know
So at this point,
and especially when you know, like the
Go.
public. Sorry to interrupt.
Go,
when you
go.
know the public love you as well. I'll be stepping off the plane like I've arrived.
I'm El Chapo.
You know, it was very surreal coming out, because, like I said, you come out and people know your name.
Yeah.
People are like, 'cause I feel 'cause you kind of touched on it, but because I feel like I was quite personable on there, you feel like you actually know me.
Yeah.
And you know, it's probably quite similar with all reality TV shows. You feel like you actually know the person that you're watching on TV. So a lot of people just come and chat to me like we're mates, you know, as if we've been brethren for years. So it's like, it's quite nice. It's like, oh yeah, Naz, we loved you on the show. You know, we love this. You know, you're really funny. You're really true to yourself and things like that. So for me, it's quite nice to hear that I was accurately depicted as myself. Do you know what I mean? That's
It's so interesting with reality TV, because I feel like if, let's say, you went on a movie, for example, right?
Yeah.
People have to leave their house and go to a cinema to go see you.
Yeah.
But because this is a reality TV, everyone is sitting down in their living room watching you.
Yeah.
So it's almost like they build like a personal connection towards you, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So it's like they know you.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's quite interesting, because people get really invested in, you know, you as a person and you as a couple, or you as like whatever decision you make, people are like extremely invested. And I never really understood that, because I'm thinking, oh, like, I'm just, and for me, because I haven't done anything spectacular or interesting, but it's quite surreal that people you know, come up to me, even like to this day to a certain extent, like they come up to me and they're like, oh, you know,
Love.
we loved you on there, or you know, you did your thing on there.
Does it get annoying though at some point? Because I'm thinking like, imagine if you're, I don't know, doing shopping in like Sainsbury's or something.
It's
Just
funny you
trying to
say
get
that
some-
because I literally got stopped in Sainsbury's.
Really? Yeah, I was gonna say like you're just trying to get some food and people are coming up to you. I'll be, oh, it's a bit too much.
Do
now.
you know what? I like, if I'm being honest, I don't mind at all because, I mean, I love chatting to people as it is. I like interacting with people, and because it's such a unique experience, everyone has a question to ask. But I feel like you always need to give your best 5 minutes to people because you never know what they're going through or what you meant to them, or you know, because there have been times where people have told me, oh, you know, you got me through a tough time, or you know, I watched you from so and so, or you know, I can resonate with you because you know I'm like South Asian as well, or I'm 5'7" as well. Do you know what I mean? Like whatever it is, oh, you know, like bro, you represented me well, so I can't then kind of throw it back in your face and be like, oh,
100%.
sorry, I ain't got time for you. Sorry, I ain't got time for you. No, it's never draining because I think generally people know, right? It's just like a quick interaction or whatever. I think it's just maybe sometimes on nights out, you know, if people get a bit too pally about it. I think, all right, mate.
Well, you know what, that is quite powerful though. Like even on a serious note, like you know, to hear someone say watching you on TV genuinely got me out of like a tough period that I was going through, and you know, put a smile on my face. I think that's huge, man. When you think about the impact that reality TV has on people, that's just, for me, that's mind-boggling to even think that.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think, especially for me, because I literally just went on the show with just my authentic self.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, obviously, there's like the good, the bad, and the ugly that comes with it, you know, with people's opinions. But I think it's always nice to hear, you know, nice things. You know, like if it resonated with you, or if it brought you some kind of enjoyment, whether it was me or whether it was any other islanders as well. Like it's quite nice to hear.
100%. And when you came out, like, what was the game plan in terms of, like, because you know, for me, I work in business and sales, so naturally I'll be thinking about, okay, well, what's the next venture? What's the next move? You know, what's the next project? What was your mindset as you came out of the villa? Did you sort of think, this is what I'm going to next, or were you sort of soaking it all in, taking it all in, and just sort of chilling kind of thing?
I think it's a little bit of both, because on the one hand, I didn't have any preconceptions, didn't have any idea of what I wanted to do after. And, you know, the obvious thing to do is social media and go down that route. But that was very alien to me. Like, being a social media presence was very alien to me. And imagine going from 1,000 followers to now almost 500,000 is a huge change. It's like, right, I got to kind of watch what I say. Not that I was saying anything outrageous anyway, but you have to like watch what you say. And, you know, people are watching. They're not looking up to you as if but do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean,
Like, to a certain extent, like people are looking to you, like whoever it may be, they're looking to you for like, oh, you need to have an opinion on this, or you don't need to have an opinion, or you need to say the right things. Blah, blah.
Yeah.
So it is a little bit of a minefield navigating social media. But then what, again, as you said, like, what do I do next? I think a lot of people turned to me and said, oh, I think you'd be good at presenting. And it was something that I'd never really thought about. You know, like, I mean, when I was in school, I used to be like the lead in like primary school and things like that. Not that it was like, I never really put two and two together until I was like, oh, actually, like, I kind of have history of it. And my dad always used to document my football matches, and he always used to document like us, just our everyday lives, like before social media was a thing, or like before videography was a huge thing. Like, he would just have his camera and just, you know, document when we went to like Brighton or when we went on holiday. And I was always kind of in front of the camera. Yeah. And it never really dawned on me until I was like, oh, actually, it makes sense as to why I'm quite relaxed on camera, because I've been doing this my whole life, really,
100%.
to a certain extent. So, yeah, the plan was to go into presenting, but obviously we kind of came out into COVID, and I'm also trying to navigate the whirlwind of everyone wants, you know, let's say like radio stations want to hear your opinions, this magazine, that magazine, this person, so and so. Everyone wants to hear your opinions on your fellow islanders, or everyone wants to hear, you know, what's next and how are you feeling about this and why did you do this? And it's quite a lot to deal with, to go from, like I said, someone that just graduated from university to now, like, all of a sudden you're in the limelight to a certain extent.
So in terms of when you come out, right, is there almost like a paved path that most people go down, or is it something that you have to kind of construct and kind of do yourself?
I think it's
to be successful.
It's definitely something you need to construct yourself, because you got to remember, right, even if someone had a parallel journey to me, they wouldn't have had the same experience, or they wouldn't have had, you know, the same amount of social media followers, they wouldn't have the same demographic. So it is what you make of it, in the sense that, okay, I left off after 4 weeks, whereas, you know, the finalists leave after 6 weeks, and they've got, you know, triple or double or triple the amount of followers, so they've got different opportunities, or people that left a couple of weeks before me or only lasted like, let's say like a week or so, or just in the Casper orbit, the opportunities are very different depending on where you were and how you were perceived, and kind of what you do after as well. Because if you're very active on social media after, I think we've kind of seen it in recent times with TikTok. Because you know, TikTok can propel people to a whole nother level. And I think when I just come out of the villa, I don't even know if TikTok wasn't really a thing where you do, it was just like dances. So I was just clowning on TikTok. I'm a savage. It was a tough time. Don't scroll down through my TikTok feed, please. I beg you, don't do that. But yeah, nowadays it's more about, you know, having a personality and an opinion. So people come out of the villa. And even if we're only on there for a few days, you can still, oh, you know, this is my opinion on this, or this is my so-and-so. Whereas before it's like, unless you're invited to, let's say, a radio station, or unless you're invited to talk about your opinion, no one's really taking the time
to search for it.
Do you know what I mean? So,
and I think you've got such an interesting perspective as well, because you said it just now that you wasn't even really thinking about the whole social media route anyway.
Yeah.
So naturally, everything that you're going to be doing is going to come across very authentic, because you know, you're not kind of chasing that sort of, I'm an influencer or whatever. You know.
I don't like that word.
Yeah, you know.
Well, you know, I just feel like, for me, I have nothing against influencers, but for me personally, like, who am I influencing? You know what I mean? Like, who's actually influenced by me? That's what, sometimes I just post things, I just think, like, who actually cares? Like, who actually cares? Like, it's borderline just for your own ego, isn't it? Like, oh yeah, you know, I went on this holiday, or I, you know, went fishing there. And it's just like, who actually cares?
What would you say the most interesting opportunity that you got? You don't have to go into detail, but that you got from being on the show, whether it's like an experience or traveling somewhere. What would you say has been like the highlight?
That's a great question, you know, because I think in terms of straight off the back of the show, I can't even remember, if I'm being completely honest, but there's holidays and trips that, you know, you get to go on as a result of having this following. Maybe not necessarily, like most content creators in general could probably pitch themselves to do this, but I would say traveling has always been like a huge part of my life. I think the more you travel and the more you experience other cultures and the more you see, the more of a well-rounded person you are. And I kind of want to touch on football as well, because, you know, growing up in South London where I did, it was a very big mix of people, and I loved it. You know, growing up, there's people from so many different backgrounds and heritages and, you know, different religions, so I always got to mix really well with those. But then taking that another step further, playing football in, you know, like South London, huge mix of people there, and then going to move and play football in Surrey, another completely different thing, and you're bonding with different teammates and different people from different backgrounds.
Yeah, 100%.
So yeah, I think traveling was a big one, because I've always wanted to see as much of the world as I possibly can. That's like a big one. But in terms of like work, I would say working with probably Sky and Lad Bible. Nice. I love both of them. Nice. Absolutely love both of them. Obviously, I don't know, I say obviously like everyone knows this, but I interviewed Margot Robbie, which was like insane for me, and that was through Lad Bible.
Wolf of Wolves, that's Wolf of Wolves.
Yeah.
Oh, you're a lucky boy.
I know. The thing is, I edited the content I put out, but I was stuttering. I was like to her like, hi Mark. It wasn't that bad. Basically, it was like she was on one side of the fence essentially, and I was on the other side. So it's kind of like I'm just waving this microphone trying to get her attention, because there's like 20 of us lined up, different press outlets. And as she's walking by, I'm like, "Oh, Margot, and then she goes, "I know who you are." And I was like, what's my name then? She's like, Naz. And I was like, that, you know when you said, oh, you feel like, you know, I'm that guy. In that moment, I said, I've gone clear. No one can tell me anything. Margot Robbie knows my name. No one can tell me anything ever again. So
I love that.
That was like a career highlight, I would say.
So on the flip side, just a quick follow-up to that question then, is there any opportunities that you think you would have loved to have done, but you didn't get the opportunity because of the fact that you've been on Love Island? Because I think it's almost a double-edged sword sometimes. And I'll give a bit of context behind the question. So I work in sales. I work in sort of the corporate world, and I won't say any sort of names or anything like that. But there was one guy that went on X on the Beach.
Okay.
And then he applied to be a sales person at the company I was working for, and across the sales team, they were all making a bit of a jest about him. It's like, how can you think you've gone on a reality TV show you didn't portray yourself in the best light.
Yeah.
And then you want to come into like the corporate world.
Yeah.
And it's funny, weird enough, he messaged me separately on LinkedIn to kind of like have a conversation and say, hey, I'm trying to get into the game. You've worked at this company. Any tips and tricks? And naturally, I gave him some time, but I saw firsthand how being on reality TV blocked him from kind of coming into that corporate world.
I think, well, for me personally, I've never really been in the corporate environment or never been in that world per se. So I wouldn't say it's really locked up any opportunities for me. But I do get exactly what you mean. Yeah. As you mentioned, it is a double-edged sword because corporate companies just won't. Yeah. Not that they won't take you seriously, but it's a lot harder to be taken seriously 100%. After, kind of showcasing yourself for the world. And then again, it depends on how you. So, for example, the company that I applied for, the same one that I signed the contract for, the health and wellbeing coaching role, when I came out of the show, they were plastering me all over their social media, saying, "Oh, our coach Naz, da 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 da." Wow. I ain't worked a day in my life. It goes both ways. You portray yourself well. For example, all of a sudden, everyone's like, "Oh, you know what? We can use that for our gain, perhaps." Whereas maybe other companies that are a bit more, serious and a bit more, like I said, maybe corporate, they maybe don't take too kindly to that. But for me personally, I've never really had to worry about that.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
And sorry,
go.
No, I was gonna say, did you kind of like, and this I'm gonna go slightly serious in the question, but hopefully not too serious. But I know there's a whole lot of like mental stuff, mental health that comes from being on reality TV and being on those type of shows. And did you ever, and you don't have to go into as much detail on this as you want, but did you ever feel yourself being affected by stuff like that? Seeing yourself on TV, seeing comments, people having such a strong opinion on you. Yeah. Did that kind of affect how you thought about yourself and how you viewed yourself and that sort of thing?
That's a great question because initially when you come out of the villa, as you mentioned, everyone's got an opinion. Everyone wants to voice that opinion, whether they're coming to your social media pages, whether it's even just on their social media pages and you just happen to stumble across it, or on Twitter, for example, which can be quite, I'm off Twitter to be fair, because it can be, I remember back in the day, it used to be quite relentless, whatever it may be. But I think for me personally, it can take its toll, but I've always kind of lived in the real world in the sense that I've got my family that have always supported me 100%. I touched on it with the football stuff, but they've always been my biggest fans and they've always been my rock. Whenever I've been through hardships, they've always kept me grounded. They've always made sure I was okay. So I knew that if I had my family, then I'm okay. Do you know what I mean? So it was never really a case of like, I'm struggling to the point where it's getting too much for me. It's just kind of like, well, I see the comments, maybe be a little bit upset. But when it's quite relentless, it can be a little bit, you do get anxious, you do get nervous, and I can empathize with people that go through it because I have been there to a certain extent. But for me, my way of dealing with it was just kind of just switching back, or just putting my phone away and thinking, actually, you know what, this isn't real for now. This is just people's opinions, and it could be any Tom, Dick, or Harry that's writing this. It could be just a random person, or it could be someone really close to you. Do you know what I mean? So it goes.
It's my opportunity.
It could be anyone. So
do people sit there and read comments though? Like
it's easy to do that.
Yeah,
it's very easy to do it because you think about it. If you made one mistake, you'd probably be thinking, or at work, for example, you'd be thinking about that mistake for the rest of the day, but you've done 99 other things that were amazing. But you're kicking yourself and you're beating yourself up about that one horrible comment. So you can imagine if I'm scrolling through, or if someone's scrolling through, they see one bad comment, it could play on their mind. Or even worse, if you're getting a bunch of hate, you're just thinking, well, this is too much, it's relentless, and so I do get it. But in terms of Love Island, the aftercare, again, I can't really fault them because they had measures in place beforehand. We did psych screenings. I was fortunate enough to get a good rap on the show. They portrayed me quite true to character, and leaving the villa, they were quite persistent with if you need any help or if you need any mental health. But that's just my experience. There's other people that may have different experiences.
100%.
And kind of circling back to your point in terms of opportunities, because I think that's quite interesting. And I think there's quite a diverse range of, like you mentioned earlier, opportunities that arise from different individuals that go into the island. For example, you get someone like Molly May that comes out and then blows up and, just has deals with every single person. And you get other people that don't have the same opportunities. So could you talk a little bit about that and what kind of causes it and what are the variables that would suggest what opportunities you would get and you wouldn't get?
Yeah, for sure. I think firstly, it's what path you want to go down. You know, let's say, and how well you do on the show and how well you were portrayed and how well you're liked by the public. Because, you know, if you're a bit more marketable or if you're a bit more savvy with what you're doing, then, and you want to go down the social media route, for example, then you can kind of, you know, align the way you brand yourself with what you want to do. But as I said, like if you've got 1 million followers, it's a bit easier to pitch yourself to brands and to, you know, get more money for what you do. And if you're portrayed well, again, it's easier to pitch yourself to brands. Whereas if you didn't get the best rap, it's almost an uphill battle trying to be like, right, well, you know, and that's why I think the beauty of TikTok in a sense is like you can actually, if you did get a bad rap on the show and you then jump on TikTok and you give your version of things, all of a sudden people think, oh, you know, actually
he's all right.
He's all right. He's actually quite funny. Or, you know, so people will someone will resonate with you, or you will have a group of people. If you're true to yourself, people will resonate with you to a certain extent. Do you know what I mean? So like, you know, let's say I talk about football. People that like football might start flocking towards me and be like, oh, you know, actually he's got a good opinion, or he's actually good at football, or he's actually a calm guy, or he's a funny guy, or whatever it is. But again, it's kind of what you make of it to a certain extent. Obviously, like I said, the better you do on the show or the more followers you get after the show, that helps. And also you got to remember that the majority of the audience will also dictate that as well. So the majority of the audience are probably female. So my insights or my following will be more female dominant. Meaning, I don't know why he's smiling.
You know what? As you said that, I was like, why are you saying? I keep thinking like that. So what do you say?
Bro, if you got my social media, you can have it. I'm all right. But yeah, so for example, what I mean by that is, let's say you're like a Molly May, for example, when you come out the show and the majority of your followers are female, it's very easy to connect with those followers because you're talking about or things that are like just very easy to talk about. You know, wherever it may be, whatever she's interested. I think she's interested in fashion. So if you're interested in fashion, then a lot of her followers might also be interested in fashion. Whereas for me, it's like the things that I'm very passionate about, they might not necessarily be that passionate about. You know, if I talk about, I don't know, like what's like a predominantly male thing, like Call of Duty or FIFA or something like that, like predominantly males, seeing more females into gaming now. But like if I talk about FIFA, or like, let's say if I talk about relationships, because obviously people know me for relationships or whatever, then, or Love Island related things, all of a sudden everyone's flocking to that and everyone's engaged in that. Whereas if I talk about, you know, I just packed Mbappe, or not, there's a lot less,
I know exactly what
you mean. A lot less people are interested in that. So if I wanted to then, you know, turn that into like into a thing, like, oh, you know, like now I want to be which I actually did do for a little bit, just did a bit of streaming on Twitch, but you know, streaming like Road to Division 1 on clubs, you know, just with my mates. And it only resonated with a certain percentage of my following. Whereas like if I talked about, you know, Love Island, I mean everyone knows you for Love Island, so everyone's flocking towards that.
That's interesting actually, because I never really thought about that, but it's I can see why that would be the case, because they know you from Love Island, so things that are related to Love Island, they'll naturally be interested in it. So would that create frustration on your part then? Because if you're trying to connect with, you know, you see this big following, you know, I'm trying to connect with you, I've just unpacked Mbappe, like interact with me or that. Like, does it create a bit of a frustration on your side?
It's not a frustration per se. I would say it's a learning curve. Like that's the best way to describe it, because it's like, I mean, the more content you put out, the more you understand what performs well and what doesn't, and how to maybe weave in, like, let's say FIFA into, like, what my audience may resonate with. So let's just say, for example, I was working with Sky Sports on a campaign about me watching football, or like, you know, the Premier League starting back up, and what I'm doing is I'm, you know, doing my household things to make sure that the missus is okay, you know, running baths and, you know, doing a bit of tidying and making sure that she's all prim and proper so that I can get my time to watch the football. So that's kind of like, rather than me outright talking about football, it's like I've tried to weave it in a way that it's relatable to being like a couple, or to being, you know, like in that Love Island realm.
Yeah.
And then the weaving it in. So a lot of the work I've tried to do is like weave it in slowly but surely, but then also kind of let you know, right, I support Liverpool. I love Liverpool. I love talking about football. I love gaming. I love, you know, I want to be a presenter. I want to do, you know, public interviews and things like that. So that is the kind of thing I've tried to like weave in slowly but surely, but also try to make it as relevant as I can to the masses. So yeah, it's been a bit of a, I mean, it's like 4 years down the line. It's been a bit of a trial and error, a trial and error learning curve. So slowly but surely getting there.
100%.
And just, I was going to ask, just circling back to that point, because it's quite interesting. So you mentioned something about the editing process, and being a content creator now, I realize how much creativity actually goes into editing, and how much perceptions you can actually give off through certain tweets and editing. The Islanders are not in control of the editing in terms of how they're portrayed. So sometimes you might get, you know, scenes that make them look better and scenes that make them look worse. So then, in terms of frustrations, like your question, how frustrating is that? Because you're not really in control of your own narrative.
He's lucky he was edited well.
He's fine. He's fine.
For me personally,
He's fine. I'm just looking at like some of the other Islanders. The bigger picture.
So for me, I was edited well, but I was surprised to hear that other people weren't.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Like people that, you know, were around me that I thought everyone was amazing. Like, but I don't know if I just see the world through rose-tinted glasses, but I just thought everyone was really nice. My season in particular, everyone got along really well. So I didn't have a bad word to say about absolutely anyone. So when I came out and I heard, oh, you know, so-and-so got a bad rap, or so-and-so didn't get the best rap, or so-and-so, blah, 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 I thought to myself, but they're actually really funny, and they're really cool, and they're really nice, and they're really, you know, like warm and kind. You know, so I was really surprised at that. So, like I said, I think in more recent times, you know, if you did have a bad rap, it's easier to turn to TikTok, or it's easier to turn to social media, because I feel like there's a bit of a boom on, you know, personalities rather than, you know, just a static picture of me, you know, wearing the latest garms or whatever it is. Like, there's a bit more like, you know, podcast, for example.
Podcast boys.
So there's a bit more emphasis on like personalities and podcasts and, you know, getting information out of people and having a social and talking. You know, it's transition from, you know, like I said, Instagram was just pictures only. Now we've got TikTok, which is videos. And then we've got podcasts, which are like an hour long. We transition from like mainstream TV to like, we want to see personalities 100%. On YouTube and on, you know, whatever platform it may be. So like I said, there is a bit of frustration with it, but I think now it's a bit easier to change people's perception.
Create your own narrative in a way.
And how's that journey from, because I said it before, I think the most interesting thing about you is, you know, the whole kind of presenting piece more than anything else. I think, you know, definitely really authentic. And has there been much of like a learning journey for that? Have you had to like learn certain skills, learn certain ways of being around people? Because naturally I'd imagine there's a bit of a refining process to that. I know you said you've been on camera for your whole life, and you can definitely tell that. But has there been a bit of a journey to get you presenting ready?
That's a good. Do you know what? Because I wish I could sit here and say I've done like lessons or class or something like that, and I probably should say that to make myself a bit more marketable and like people actually want to take me seriously. But I haven't done like any presenting. Like, I just kind of threw myself into the deep end. I said to my management, especially like when I first came out the show. I mean, unfortunately, we came out into COVID, so it was a bit tricky because it was like a year and a half off, and you have to remind people about who you are. But I literally just said, just throw me into the deep end. If I sink, I sink, and if I swim, you're laughing, because I know that I've got a lot to offer, and I know that I have a lot of self-confidence, a lot of self-belief. And I think that's something that, you know, has always been a huge part of my life as well. Like growing up, because I was good at football. I always had a lot of self-belief and a lot of confidence. Even at school, for example, like I used to just be a bit of a class clown, but always got on well with like the work and always quite personable. So I think that self-confidence is where a lot of the presenting skills kind of come from, like within me. So yeah, I would say that's
so important for your, like, even for your field as well. Like,
and also what I think is I don't tend to get starstruck.
Okay.
That often.
Apart from Mark,
apart from that,
let's rewind the clips.
Apart from that, I mean, that's understandable.
Yeah, we'll give you that.
That's understandable. But aside from that, like I've worked with my first ever presenting gig was called Celebrity Esports, and do you know Jimmy Carr, Joel Dommett? So Jimmy Carr, huge like
comedian,
huge hilarious comedian, and people like Jimmy Carr, Joel Dommett, Akin Fenwar. Jordan Banjo, Perry from Diversity.
Yeah.
They were all guests on a gaming show that me and my co-host Tom were basically hosting.
Nice.
And this was like my first ever presenting gig, and I'm thinking I'm doing pieces to camera, and on the other side of the camera I can just see like Jimmy Carr,
Yeah.
just like, and he's a guest on like my show, and I just
Yeah.
thought like this is just insane, and that was the first one I did. I remember day one being a little bit nervous, a little bit shaky, because I had to do. I'm a perfectionist as well, so when I'm doing these pieces to camera, I'm thinking like I just got to nail everything I say. And it's you know when you're a little bit like da 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 da. But once I actually relaxed, like day two, everyone was like, "No, you're actually like a sick presenter." And I was thinking, "What me? Me? What
That's light. It's
And are there any presenters that you look up to, like to think, you know what, yeah, if I'm like this person,
I've made it. Yeah.
I've made it, yeah.
Do you know what? It sounds harsh, but no. I think for me, it's like I know, like in my own right, I could be huge. Do you know what I mean? Or like, I have a lot of self. That sounds so big time.
No.
But as in, I know that I've got a lot to offer.
Yeah.
Put it that way. You know,
yeah.
I got a lot to offer. I think I got a lot of personality. I'm very personable. I get on well with people.
Yeah.
And even in terms of like strip away like the presenting stuff, I think networking is a huge part of being successful as well.
100%.
So you know, you got to be when you are in the right rooms, you got to be speaking to the right people and selling yourself in the right way, and you know, being personable, but also not being like chomping at the bit to be like, oh, you know, I want to do this and I want to do that, and da da da. It's like, you know, politely reminding people, oh, you know, I do presenting, and then, you know, grafting your own
100%.
route and kind of showcasing what you can do when you're given the opportunity as well. So, yeah, like there aren't. I mean, I think Mo Gilligan is great.
Yeah.
If I had to
He
pick
is
one
funny.
name, I think he's brilliant because he's very authentic. He's very, you know, just himself. And I think it's nice to see that it's, you know, there's obviously like scripted presenters that are, you know, like, you know, not daytime TV, like news reporters and things like that. That obviously scripted work, but I just love the off the cuff people and the comedians and the, you know, people that can just ad lib off the top of the dome and just say like outrageous things, but it's just very authentic. Do you know what I mean? It's not scripted. It's just, you know, I'm being me and take me as I am type of thing.
Yeah. One thing I've seen, even from the short time that, you know, we spoke before we jumped on, you know, you obviously got like a work ethic that drives you forward. And I'm just, when I meet people that have that kind of drive, I'm always interested to know, how did you get that? What pushes you to say, you know, I'm a kind of a get shit done kind of person. I want to go forward. I'm not going to sit back and let opportunities come to me. I'm going to hustle and put myself out there, because I think that's a big thing, right? Not everyone's comfortable to do that.
No, for sure. I think for me it's I don't know where the work ethic comes from specifically. I don't know if it's just the, you know, competitive nature of, you know, being a footballer, but then I guess when I was playing football I was very like competitive and hot-headed, and you know, like if we lose I was distraught. Like it actually meant a lot to me, so I can't say it stemmed from football, but I think that nurtured it. You know, that mentality to think, right, I need to get something done, because I can't just be sitting on my laurels and expecting, you know, like people to, like, obviously I've got management, but I can't expect them to do all the work for me, because, you know, I'm sure they do work in my best interest, but 100%. I know for a fact that I work in my best interest, you know what I mean? Because if I don't work, I'm not getting paid, and I'm not putting food on the table, and I'm not paying bills, and I'm not, you know, creating a better life for myself or for my family. You know, my family have sacrificed, not they sacrificed loads, you know what I mean? My parents came over here when they were like, you know, 7 and 11 years old, and they had to go through a lot, and they've, you know, laid the foundations for me to, you know, I always say to like my parents, like, you know, did you think when you were, you know, you had like holes in your trousers and you didn't have any shoes and you were running around, you know, in the sun, and, you know, you were just in a village, did you ever think that your son would be on TV?
Yeah.
And they're like, do you know what I mean? Like, when you think of it like that, it's surreal. You know, my mum grew up near the swamps in Guyana. You know, she grew up with like alligators and crocodiles or, you know, buffaloes and things like that. And it's such a it's surreal to me
100%.
to think that, you know, my mum has come from there, and, you know, my dad, he had like one pair of flip-flops that lasted him like 11 years. And like, you know, he came over, he couldn't speak a word of English, and to think that they've laid the foundations for me, you know, they've given me the comfortable life, and they've also given me the green light to be like, you know what, son, we trust you, we love you, we'll love you regardless of what you do. We believe that you'll do the best that you can, and that's good enough for us. So for me, it's like a lot of the opportunities I get, I also try to give back to my friends and family as well. You know, I took my family on, you know, when I mentioned like traveling as well, I took my family on a couple cruises.
Love that.
Because I know that, you know, obviously with them getting a bit older as well, it's just a bit easier to be like, rather than doing all the admin of, you know, let's go for a week here and now we're going here, there and ever. It's just like quite easy to be on a ship.
Yeah.
This isn't me plugging cruises, by the way, but, you know, if you want to get in touch with me. But yeah, just like, it's just giving back to them, and they're so appreciative. They're like, oh, you know what, son, like that was, it's things we talk about for years to come. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, oh, you know, we talk about that trip we went to Greece. Oh, remember we went to Thailand. It's just memories that I want to look back on because we're such a close-knit family. And even my friends, for example, something as small as when the World Cup was going on, I took them to Box Park.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like, it's light. Do you know what I mean? Like Box Park isn't like, not that it's not a huge deal, but we were in like the VIP bit at the top.
Yeah.
And they were like, and all we're doing is watching the match and like just getting, you know, like food given to us and whatnot. And they were like, bro, like that was incredible. Like, thank you so much. I mean, it's the gratitude and it's almost like, you know, when people are grateful, you always want to give back. But it's like, I do this for everyone, you know, just because I'm given the opportunity to go like here, there and wherever. It doesn't sit right with me going by myself. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? No, I'm not just doing this, you know, I'm pictured here because, you know, it suits my agenda. Like I want to bring my sister to this, or I want to bring my mum to this, you know, bring her to the theatre and see whatever it may be, or bring my mates to the football or Cirque du Soleil, or take my dad to watch Liverpool at Wembley. So these are things that I know that people would like, and I'm grateful that I can give that to them as well.
100%. I love that.
So as we're coming to an end, right? There's something that, you know, we kind of want to always get across in this podcast, and hopefully Jay will agree to this. I think a big part of this podcast is to kind of inspire young people to, you know, kind of aspire to, you know, greater things. And I think I know you hate the word, right, influencer, but I do think you do have an influence over people, right? And I think on that basis, social media is becoming a big part of our day-to-day living. A lot of young people don't want to go into corporate, for example. Yeah. They do want to utilize social media to build themselves up and do something along that path. Yeah. So what advice would you give to someone who really wants to take that route and maybe become a presenter or maybe do something within social media? What advice would you give to them? And I know that you didn't want to go into that route. Yeah. It was kind of given to you. Yeah. But now that you're on the outside, what advice would you give to them? I would say, firstly, trust the process, because it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, I know it's kind of rich coming from me because I got the following overnight, but like, the presenting thing has been 3 years in the making, and I'm still not where I want to be. I'm making strides, but one is definitely trust the process. Two, have self-belief, have self-confidence, because there are a lot of people that may not see the vision. And if you stick by your vision, if you have faith in yourself, then you can accomplish anything, you know? And I think those are the two big ones. And stay grounded as well, you know, keep your loved ones around you. Try to be around people that actually support you, because that's another huge one as well, because it feels like you're fighting an uphill battle if you're not. And stay consistent. That's a big one as well. Stay consistent, because, you know, if you're chopping and changing, 1 minute you want to do this and next minute, you know, you're letting it go for a month or so and so, you need to build a bit of momentum. Yeah, sure. And I think once you get the momentum and once you see the results, and, you know, I think the hardest thing is just starting. You know, once you get, I think there's a quote, it's like, one day I'll be like this, or this is day one. That's not how the quote goes at all. Tesla doesn't, right? It's like, oh, day one or one day. Yeah. It's like, you know,
I think I have seen it. I know what
I mean. Yeah. It's like, if you don't start today, then that one day will never appear. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's just like, just start today, get the ball rolling, have faith, have confidence, and just see where it takes you.
Yeah. No, I love that, bro. I think that was a good quote to end. To end the podcast. Honestly, I'm super excited that you came on, bro. I think you're such a top guy, man. And appreciate it. Man, it's good to have you on, bro.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you guys for having me, man. It's been a blast.
Thank you.
I don't think I've ever said that in my life. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, where are those coffees? I've been waiting ages for those coffees.